Good morning, everyone, and I can see you're already in your seats, so I won't invite you to do that. So welcome for this morning's service, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia. My name is Rebecca Drennan, and I'm your service leader today. To those of you here with us in the sanctuary, please be advised that this service is being streamed on YouTube. To those of you watching this streamed service, we're glad to have you watching, but would of course rather have you here with us in person. Also, let me remind you that we have a pre and post-service Zoom events that always runs the YouTube stream of the service. So please make sure you read the announcements in your printed order of service. Also, and especially, be sure to read the weekly events that are emailed to you each Thursday, as well as the unigram and the website. I urge you to keep our website and your website open as a tab on your internet browser so that you can keep up with what's happening. So we ask that you would practice social distancing and mask wearing per board-approved guidelines. Please do not take chances. We do not want to lose you or your loved ones. And now let us center ourselves for today's service and remember to silence all electronic devices as we listen to the Prelude.
The musical prelude for this morning's service is by Frédéric Chopin, the marvelous Polish pianist and composer. Chopin, at the age of 20, left Poland in 1830, and just 3 weeks after his departure was the November Uprising, or Polish-Russian War. When the uprising began, his friends rushed home to join the fight, but insisted he remain in exile and use his music to give voice to Poland's struggle. The subsequent oppression by Russia made it difficult for him to return to Warsaw, although he longed to go home and wanted to support the insurgents. His father advised him against returning and thought that he could serve his country better with his music than with a gun. Only a month after he left home, he described himself as a corpse and described graves behind me and beneath me, everywhere. He said, "A gloomy harmony arose within me, and I pour out my grief on the piano." He arrived in Paris and lived there for the rest of his life in 1831, just weeks after the uprising had been brutally put down, and virtually overnight became described as the poetic embodiment of captive Poland. This morning's prelude is a mazurka, which began as a fashionable ballroom dance and a national Polish dance. But after the November Uprising, and mainly through Chopin's influence, it came to symbolize Poland itself. Chopin was never able to return to his homeland. But in accordance with his wish, his physical heart was taken after his death to Poland and placed in an urn in the Holy Cross Church in Warsaw.
Thank you, Anna. Would you all please stand and join me in the congregational covenant as found in your order of service? Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant with one another. Thank you. You may be seated. Our minister, Reverend Stephen Robinson, and on those Sundays when Stephen is not in the pulpit, we present a variety of qualified and interesting speakers from this congregation and from recognized guests from the wider community. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion. We are a covenantal religion, which means we don't have to believe the same in order to treat each other the same, with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. Our community is based on deeds, not creeds. As Unitarian Universalists, we side with love, embracing all people, regardless of age, color, race, socioeconomic status, physical ability, or religious background. We especially invite families and young children. We even have a nursery. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we also embrace LGBTQ individuals. We encourage everyone to wear a name tag so that we may know each other better. Board members wear special green name tags, and they always welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. Would the members of the Board of Trustees please stand now so that you may be recognized? Thank you for what you do. At this time, we'd like to recognize any guests or visitors who are with us today. If you're willing and able, please rise and share with us your name and where you're from. Or if you have guests with you, please feel free to introduce them. But please wait until the microphone comes around.
This is my brother Gary. He's visiting here from Belize, where he's lived for 17 years, and he's hoping to come back to the States for retirement and maybe live in South Carolina.
Ooh, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, Gary.
Yeah, here's one.
I'm Morgan, and I'm new to South Carolina. My children are in Charleston, so my job offered a transfer here, so I'm in Columbia. And so I'm checking out churches because I do have the grandchildren often.
Lovely, welcome.
Well, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, there's one back here.
Okay, I'll be back in a minute.
Hi, I'm Addie,
I'm Hugh Perry.
and we're just here. We just became
We just moved to town a few months ago.
yeah, so
Ah, lovely, welcome.
I'm glad you found us early.
Before COVID, this was a time where we all jumped up and gave hugs to everybody. You can remember what that was like. But for now, because we're in recovery, we just take time now to have conversations, but we ask that you go out on the patio to do it outside where social distancing is possible and masks are optional. Today's chalice lighter is Siren Farr. Siren Richardson Farr and John Charles Calkins met at classes at the Columbia VA Hospital and were just, hold on just a second, just let them see you and without your masks, we want to see you and love you. Siren and John Charles Calkins met at a class at the Columbia VA Hospital and were just friends for a long time. They've been happily married since November 23rd, 2020, and live in a very nice newly constructed home in Columbia, along with Saren's disabled son, Lars. Charlie, who's sitting over there, is a combat disabled Vietnam veteran and a retired funeral director. And Saren is a disabled Persian Gulf War veteran who was discharged due to schizophrenia. Charlie is a Christian who loves to worship Jesus, but he attended Beth Shalom Synagogue with Saren for 1 year, where they both worshiped what they say, God the Father. Charlie believes in absolute creation by God. Saren believes all life on earth is here for a purpose, and that evolution did not just happen to happen, but it was a fact, a method used by an intelligent designer, and that new life forms like microorganisms are still being created, just as new stars are still being born from star nebulas. Saren believes that we're all here for a purpose, that all life on earth is here for a purpose, and that our interactions with each other are here for a purpose. Saren's been attending this congregation here at UUCC since October 2014 and very much enjoys the religious diversity. Saren's very happy to belong to a congregation of thinkers and is happy to be friends with everyone, regardless of their beliefs. Thank you. Saren, if you'd like to light our chalice. Thank you.
For this morning's musical meditation, it's my great pleasure to be joined by violist Karen Peters. We'll be playing Prayer for Ukraine by Ukrainian composer Mykola Lysenko.
Thank you, too. It's beautiful. Professor Jonathan Leader is a professor at the Department of Archaeology at USC. He received his PhD from the University of Florida and currently heads the Office of the State Archaeologist. He teaches and lectures on a regular basis in 4 departments of the university. A student in a recent class wrote, "He is one of my favorite teachers and courses at USC. The lectures are insanely interesting and engaging. He truly cares about every student and wants them to get an A. Although he doesn't take attendance, no one wanted to miss the class." Today, the conversation concerns social polarization, manifestations of hate, and what possible solutions might be. So I want to welcome and encourage you to welcome Professor Jonathan. We're so happy to have you in the pulpit. Would you come and give us your opening words?
The good news is the check cleared. So, some of you probably were there when Elie Wiesel came to town a number of years ago. He's now unfortunately passed away. But having the conversation with him pointed me towards the opening words. Quoting Elie, "I swore never to be silent whenever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented."
Here, you can take it right here.
Oh, okay.
It's a time that we have called Candles of Community. If you have a significant personal joy or sorrow or concern you would like to have shared from this pulpit, please phone or email Andrea, our administrator, by noon on Friday. If you would like to speak for yourself before the service begins, pick up one of the candles in the basket on the entry table and come forward to speak briefly as requested. For those of you on streaming, if you would like to have a candle lit, please text or email Andrea, our administrator, to have it read during this service. Will those of you who have a candle please come forward at this time?
Hi, I'm Kevin McKinney, and to call this a candle of concern would perhaps be pushing the point, but my wife and your friend Connie Quirk is currently engaged in a long and somewhat arduous journey, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Spoke to her last night. She said they covered 600 miles. She's helping her friend Cricket Yoshioka to relocate to Whidbey Island, Washington, Cricket having lived in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And Connie informed me that last night they were staying at the fabulous 40s motel in Alden, Texas, somewhere west of Amarillo.
Hi, I'm Joan Watterson, and I would like to offer an opportunity for those of you who have not heard about this. Our wonderful place of meditation and everything good called The Mountain up in near Highlands, North Carolina. There's a picture of it behind that wall there. We are having a clean up a work week for the UUCC between April 8th and the 16th. Now, the 16th is Easter Sunday, and the Friday before that, the rest of the southeast area, people are coming for the work weekend. But we have the opportunity to go up there the week before, any portion of it. And there's so many different things that need doing at the mountain. Their staff is very, very, very busy, and they need lots of help. So anything from sorting books in the library to picking up sticks and on the hiking trails, or just lots and lots of things. Now, the really, really good opportunity is that if you put in 6 hours a day, you get free room, free board. Just get yourself there. So now that last weekend, you do have to pay for food if you stay. So anyhow, I would like Jenny Verne to stand. She is doing the organizing of this group. Any time that you can spend up there, 1 night, 2 nights, 4 nights, whatever. So, yeah, and it's a beautiful time of year to go. Okay, see Jenny. By the way, my shirt is for the ladies basketball team, the USC ladies basketball.
yeah.
Another championship, please. Yeah.
You want to light your candle? Great.
Hi, I'm Chuck Ashley. In the words of Hawkeye Pierce, hell is hell and war is hell. And of the two, war is worse. Peace, Ukraine.
Good morning. I'm Jane Lother, married to J.P. Flood, who is not here today. His older sister, who tells me that she raised him, is in ICU, not conscious, critical. So he said, light a candle for Grace Flood. So this is for the whole Flood family.
I have a candle myself. Are there any others? No? I have a candle that I wanted us to join with people around the world in supporting the Ukrainians, but especially the mothers and grandmothers. And then speaking of them, in Russia, the last time there was a big positive change was when mothers of deceased soldiers and mothers of living soldiers went to the streets and spoke with courage to end the war. And so I would ask that we'd all pray for prayer for the anti-war people who are working so hard in Russia. Thank you. And we always have one last candle that we light for those joys and concerns that remain silent in our hearts. Let's take a moment of silent meditation. Thank you. Now we have a special person that's going to speak, Regina Moody, who all of you know, I believe, and she's going to speak about the impact and importance. Please, come on. Please come by.
It's been a while since I've been up here. Thank goodness. I've been asked to speak for a few moments about the impact and importance of worship. And I want to ask you to think just a minute about why you are here in this space this morning, as a physical presence and as a virtual one. This weekly time together that we have, we describe as worship. It must add some richness to our lives, but it's way more than a lecture or a rally or entertainment. No matter how worship is defined or our personal reasons for being here, we have chosen to come together. And recently I've been thinking about that, and I thought that perhaps participating in a time of worship takes courage. To become vulnerable like this in a public setting, what if something happened? What if we were moved unexpectedly by some of the special music? What if we heard words that stirred our minds and imaginations? What if we felt a special connection to others as we read together words in unison? What if we joined in singing a hymn and felt uplifted? In addition to courage, I think that trust is demonstrated by our gathering and being here together today. We arrived confident that the service would be meaningful and worthwhile. Primary contributors to that trust and expectation of excellence are our amazing minister, Reverend Robinson, and our incomparable music director, Anna Hamilton. From Reverend Robinson, we've come to expect insightful readings, meditations, poetry, each as part of our service each time he speaks. His honest sermons, in addition to being intellectually stimulating, always demonstrate humanity, humility, and humor. And Anna, we are amazed with her immense talent, wide knowledge, and innumerable musical contacts, and her ability to weave appropriate music throughout the hour. We do realize it is because of the money each of us gives that we are able to pay the salary of these outstanding professional staff and provide an honorarium to outside speakers and guest musicians. Now, working close with Reverend Stephen and Anna are individuals who serve on our worship committee, and they are mixed among us today. We can trust these people, these volunteers, who've worked many hours behind the scene to arrange for meaningful programs and speakers when Stephen is not in the pulpit, and to perform many mundane tasks, such as acquiring enough hymnals, and that includes large print hymnals, and purchasing candles for the Christmas Eve service. When it comes to all manner of technology that makes our worship services successful and understandable, we are confident that those dedicated volunteers will assure the hour goes smoothly, as if by magic. And finally, we trust that each Sunday, when possible, and we gather here, we gather in a clean, comfortable, and welcoming environment. Worship and music have been central to the life of this congregation all through the years, and I've spent 5 decades appreciating that. I believe that worship and music are essential for keeping us going as a strong and healthy institution, essential for affirming a vision of expanding religious community, and essential for providing personal spiritual nourishment. May we acknowledge in these times, that it also takes courage and trust to make a financial commitment to this place, to its worship, and to all it aspires to be. Thank you.
This congregation contributes what we call Share the Plate, where half of our cash collection each Sunday goes to local charities, a way for us to give back to the community that we live in. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Congaree Riverkeeper. If you're contributing by check, please write in Share the Plate on the memo line, or you may also make an online contribution. Those of you on streaming may certainly contribute. You will find the link on the UUCC website, which is uucolumbia.org. So I'm going to ask the ushers, please, to come forward.
Our offertory music is I Am a Seed of Peace by Amgad Naguib and James Durst, arranged by Jim Scott.
Thank you. We receive these gifts with gratitude and appreciation, as it demonstrates that we are truly a giving community. I'm going to ask Linda Brennison to come up just to tell us where we are on the pledge drive.
Thank you, Rebecca. And now, what you've all been waiting for, your pledge update. I am Linda Brennison, Finance Chair, and I welcome all our members, visitors, and guests. And I wanted to let you know that as of Monday, which is the latest update I have, we've received approximately 51% of our goal of $220,000 in pledges. And I want to particularly thank all of you that participated in our pledge event and filled out your card at that time. If you haven't had a chance to fill out your pledge card, we have plenty of those in the back. you'll see a display, and also in the foyer we have cards, or you can email your pledge, or you can go onto our website and donate there as well. Thank you so very much for all your time, treasures, and talents. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And now we're so happy to hear from Professor Leeds. Thank you.
I think we should probably wait until I'm done before we make that statement, but okay. Thank you for inviting me. This is my third time here, and the first time I came was to talk at the Sierra Club. And I saw the shofars on the door and said, oh, okay, that's a temple. And I went around the block and 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 around the block a couple more times. Eventually someone stood outside and waved at me and said, no, this is it. What can I say? All right, so this is not a happy topic. This is not a topic which you take to light situations and, cocktail talk and everybody clusters around and laughs and jokes. It's one of those ones where you start in on, everybody gets big-eyed and they scurry quickly to any other place than where you happen to be. I will tell you that I teach a couple different courses at the university. I am the state archaeologist. I know usually I say, hi, my name is John. Hi, John, I'm the state archaeologist, and we do the 12 steps. But the other part of it is that I also, of course, I'm an anthropologist. And I have been involved with conflict zones and conflict since the tender age of 17. So I do have something of a background. As I said to one individual earlier today, clearly misspent, but what can you do? So my class this semester is Cultural Analysis of Terror. Excuse me, that was a couple back. My current class is Anthropology of Long Conflict. So normally I deal with other areas I'm a SME on, but this time I told the class they had no choice. They couldn't ask me for the topic. I was doing domestic violent extremism and domestic terrorism. So the entire half of this semester, I've been working them through what all that means and what it portends and how one deals with it. I'm not going to do that to you. There are no tests. But I am going to give you some background. I'm going to make some suggestions, and then when I'm done, because I only have 20 minutes, I am on the clock, I will stay after if you have any questions. And you're welcome to contact me at the university. Come in, have tea, cakes, whatever. I'd be happy to talk to you. All right. So much for the happy part. We live in difficult times. We do. There's no question of it. Society is in conflict. People are polarized to a fairly well. And hate, actual hate, has become the default position for at least some, if not many. So what are we talking about? Well, statistics are statistics, and we all know there are issues with statistics, especially with this group. I feel like I'm at a faculty meeting. But, statistics are statistics, but just to go over some of it, when we talk about hate crimes, and let's be very clear, hate crimes are not defined the same way in the states that actually have hate crime legislation. We are one of only 2 states, Wyoming being the other one at this point. Arkansas finally jumped off of that wagon, that don't even have that as a definition, much less a law. And therefore, this is a little bit iffy in terms of the total numbers. But in 2020, last year we have reasonably good data for, there were 8,052 single bias incidents involving 11,126 victims. Those are the ones that were reported and then stated to be hate crimes. In addition, there were 211 other incidents for a total of 346 victims who were targeted not for a single bias issue, but multiple bias issues. Of that group, race ethnicity was 61.8%. Sexual orientation and gender was 20%, and religion was 13.3%. Those are pretty horrific numbers. And as I said, they're low. they're conservative, they are not completely accurate based on all those other things. If we move beyond that to the question of involvement in society, because after all, one of the barometers of a healthy society is who's involved, who's being taken care of. Are the elderly taken care of? Are children being taken care of? Are the marginalized being taken care of? These will all become serious issues. So let's talk about voter suppression, shall we, for a second? 18 states have passed, enacted 30 voter suppression laws to make voting more difficult. 18. Okay, well, there are 50 states, right? No. 400 bills were introduced in 49 states in 2021. 400 bills. Now, have they been passed? No, they haven't been passed. But they have been brought forward specifically to deal with issues in most cases that don't actually exist. It's perception. Now, as an anthropologist, we always talk about the emic and the etic. What's the inside group think they're doing? What's the outside think they're doing? And where's the disjunction? Where are the things that don't actually connect to reality? But there we are. 18 states have enacted 30 laws, and there are 400 additional bills. There are 5 bills here, by the way. What should be good news is that the number of actual hate groups fell for the 3rd year in a row. Okay, this is nice. 733 active hate groups were operating in 2021, 733, which was down from 838, okay, in 2020. The problem is that there are at the very least 2 separate reasons for this. Many of the issues that produce the hate groups are now mainstream. And therefore, the hate groups don't need to actually exist because you don't have to belong to a marginal group. And a number of the high-profile leaders of some of those groups that still exist are currently under indictment or in jail. And their groups have, moved off to other groups and realigned and reformed. They have not gone away. They have not gone away. You take the head off and the other people move to another organization. In terms of white power groups, which declined as they faced arrests and civil suits, right? That's good, they declined. Except that the Proud Boys chapters grew. There were 43 chapters in 2020. In 2021, there were 72. So what we're doing is squeezing toothpaste. It's going from one group to another group to another group to another group. And as we all know, the Proud Boys were founded by, I am going to ask a question. I'm a professor, what can I say? Does anybody know who founded the Proud Boys and what organization he belonged to? No, nothing is, no, not the Ku Klux Klan. No, the gentleman who founded, one of the co-founders of Viceland News, McKeven, produced the Proud Boys, okay? And of course, very shortly thereafter, Vice News said, and he was no longer part of them. Beyond hate groups, there were 566 anti-government groups identified in 2020, okay? And this has declined to 488 in 2021, but again, for very much the same reasons. They're not going away, they're mainstreamed. The government attempts to deal with these things. They are prosecuting vigorously the January 6th Capitol situation. And the reason I use situation is depending who you're talking to, it was either a riot, an insurrection, or a tourist event. Which demonstrates again that the context and narrative embraced by various political and other factions are mutually unrecognizable, okay? The embrace of extreme views has led to a rise in violent rhetoric and the acceptance of violence as an acceptable solution. 1 in 3 Americans feel that violence against the government is justified. 46% believe that a civil war is likely. And that belief, by the way, is strongest among younger people at 53%. And I'm going to return to that a little bit later. More than 5 million adults became first-time gun owners between January 2020 and April 2021. 5 million, compared to 2.4 million in 2019. Last time I saw something like that, it was just before the civil war in Lebanon. 55% of new gun owners were white. 20.9% were Black or African American, and 20% were Hispanic. So it's not quite, but pretty close to an even split. All right. This is where I pull out my big chunk of 70% organic dark chocolate for my endorphins. Okay, now that we are all thoroughly depressed, what do? Self-medicate? Well, I just mentioned that. Immigrate, arm up, take to the streets. There are ways to deal with the situation. None of them are easy. All of them are essential. And if we are continuing forward as a community, much less a nation, we're going to need to be doing them. Okay? Nobody gets to sit on the sidelines. First of all, we have to acknowledge the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. People have the right to hold extreme views. They don't have the right to engage in violence, but people do have the right of personal belief, assembly, redress, all those wonderful things guaranteed by the Constitution. And until recently, that was a core teaching of the ACLU, although it's not anymore. Okay? And that's an issue as well, but not for this one. That's a different class, sorry. All right. For those of us who actually had high school civics lessons, we know that we need to get things together and actually have discussions, right? So disagreement and conflict, to a certain level, are normal. They're unavoidable. In fact, not only are they unavoidable, they're okay. They're healthy. If everybody agreed with everybody else, nothing would ever happen. There'd be no discussions. And we all know, being here at the Unitarian Universalist, this discussion is what you people thrive on. So this is good, okay? All right, so we also have to do one other thing, which is to acknowledge that some people will not be reachable no matter what we do, okay? But that's not an excuse not to try. It's an excuse to allow you to fail, and that's a big difference, right? No demonization. Okay, how do people get to their extreme views? They don't wake up on a Thursday and go, oh, I'm QAnon. It's not what happens. And let me be very clear. It's easy to demonize the other. It's very easy to say it's mental health or whatever and da-da. No. Just plain no. It's not true. The vast majority of the people are really no different from the rest of us. There are other things going on. And it's those other things we have to deal with. So what are they? Some of my colleagues go for the three-legged stool: grievance, narrative, and networks. Grievance, narrative, networks. I'm old school. You never know. I go for the four legs. I go for the chair. I'm old. I like chairs. Stools, not so good. Grievance, networks, ideology, and enabling networks. Those are the things that do the recruitment and push people into extremism. Everybody has a grievance. I have grievances, you have grievances, my wife has grievances, she's been with me for 50 years, just imagine, right? Everybody has a grievance. But the reality is that grievance in and of itself is never enough to push a person to extremism. It's necessary. It's not sufficient. So what happens? Someone has a grievance. Once they have a grievance, other people help them to formulate that grievance into what it means. And that's where the network comes in. Is it your family? Is it your religious group? Is it your community? Is it your social club? Is it your bar? Who are you actually dealing with who's helping you, as you whine, whinge, and complain, put it into formulation that allows you to deal with it? So networks are extraordinarily important. And the choice of networks, the availability of networks, and what the networks say has real-world implications. Ideology is part and parcel of that, right? I'm sure you've all sat down with someone else whose ideology is quite different from your own. That's what Thanksgiving is for, right? You sit down there, eat your turkey, and have discussions with, crazy Uncle Ed who's not really crazy, but he belongs to something else, and you work your way down the line. Enabling structures, okay, so you've got your grievance, you've got your network that's patting you in the back and say, yeah, bud, we know what's going on, or whatever your personal pronoun is. Yeah, bud, we know what's going on. You're one of us. You're supported. Ooh, you're supported. We hear you. And this is how you put it into perspective that allows you to then work your way through it. It's not necessarily about you. It's about them. Okay? And then the next part, which really cements it, is when you go to the retreat. You go to the camp, the retreat, the whatever, the social event, and it's not just you and a couple of people, it's you and a lot of people. Think rallies. We've seen a couple recently. Okay? And all of a sudden, it's, wow, power of numbers. It's group think. It's cognitive closure. It's validation. And that is extraordinarily powerful. And it brings people in and it moves them further down the line. And again, I'm going to say it again. We have a Constitution, we have a Bill of Rights. People are allowed to do all of those things, right? They're allowed to do it. You may not like it, you may disagree with them, at least I hope you do on most of the things, but they are allowed to have those beliefs. So what do you do about it? What you don't do is what many people do. You don't scream at them. You don't tell them just how idiotic, wrong, moronic, stupid, imbecilic, figure out your own term, right? Right? You don't drop the F-bomb all over them, right? And you do not immediately go to, well, they are irredeemable, they're not me, they're not us, oh my gosh, they're the great unwashed, they're despicable, deplorable, ooh, wait, who's, and off they go. You don't do that. Because a good chunk of what you're looking at with those other things is a question of the remnant, whether it's a political or religious remnant, and that they're dealing with martyrdom, they're saviors, they understand, nobody else does, and they're trying to move the place forward. And it works for them because they have a support group that has helped them do that. And it didn't happen on a Thursday morning. It happened slowly, over time, and to a very deep level. Which means if you're trying to get them out of it, guess what? It takes a great deal of time at a very deep level of direct interaction. You don't wake up again on a Thursday and say, oh, flip the switch, you're done. Now, having said that, there are a couple things that do happen. The people who go into violent extremism, not infrequently, just like other people who go into various other things, some people use the same as like drug addiction or alcohol, they hit bottom. Something triggers them and they go, holy cow, what am I doing? And they back off. But that's a long and bumpy ride before that usually occurs, okay? So that's not necessarily the best way to look at it. What we really are talking about is the application of de-escalation techniques. You have to engage with the other, which means you get out of your comfort zone, you get off the sofa, you get out of the house, and you go to the places where people are. And you actually have conversations with them. Not because you're engaged in debate, because you're not. Let me be very clear. You are not engaged in debate. But what you are engaged in is to be seen as the other who is not a threat and listens. So giving the person undivided attention is exactly what the group that radicalized them did. Exactly the same. You're doing the same thing, just in the opposite direction. You're non-judgmental. You focus on the person's feelings, not just the facts. Not just the facts. Nobody has ever won anything in real life by quoting facts at another person. It doesn't work that way. Listening, you don't have to agree, but listening very carefully, not providing immediate solutions, because that's not your job. I know for most guys that's all been impossible, it seems to be hardwired, but don't do it. You listen, you're not judgmental, you focus on the person's feelings, you do not spout facts, and you allow for silence. can be quite effective. And you restate the other person's message. Do I understand this correctly? You give them the opportunity to go, to not only affirm that they have a point, but they are, have the opportunity to clarify to it so that they know that you know that they know that you're listening and they know that you know what they just said. And that is incredibly powerful. In fact, from all the studies done by RAND and DHS and Secret Service and FBI and a slew of other groups, Prevent out of the UK, simply having somebody listen to these people and then deal with them appropriately, as I just outlined, is incredibly effective. Incredibly. Now, if the person is actually engaged in violence, not so much, because they have gone that extra step, that extra mile to put themselves in an elite position with their organization. And the last part of that, of course, is that once you've had that relationship, it has to continue. It's not a Saturday morning kind of thing, unless you're meeting with them or he, she, or it, repeatedly on a Saturday morning. But it's not one time. It wasn't one time to get them in. It wasn't going to be one time to get them out. And you cannot expect the government to do it, because nobody, I don't care which end of the spectrum you're on, trusts the government. It's got to be individuals. And the best individual, of course, is the person who's actually been a member of that group, who's removed themselves from that group and has now made themselves available to support other people. That's the best. And amazingly enough, there are a lot of people who are ex-Klan, ex-neo-Nazi, XXX, pick your X, who are indeed doing that type of work. Doesn't let the rest of us off the hook. You come across it, you see it, you spot it, you need to engage. But you need to engage based on de-escalation techniques. Okay? And again, sometimes it works, sometimes it sort of works, and sometimes it never works. Not an excuse not to try. You've got to go for it. All right, so let me just recap. Negative life events, not the sole cause of extremism or radicalization. Necessary, not sufficient. The enduring appeal of extremist groups seems to lie in attending to fundamental human needs. Okay? Recruitment to radical groups deliberately leverages personal vulnerabilities. People become very clear, they're predators. Both radicalization and de-radicalization can be triggered, but don't bet on it. Heavy-handed attempts by formal institutions to de-radicalize individuals will often fail. I usually simply say they fail. 99% fail. Stigmatization of groups seems mostly to push at-risk people into the extremists. You stigmatize somebody, you're doing is closing off an avenue of retreat. We need to stop it. Stigmatizing is easy and it cannot be done. Media literacy and open access to diverse sources is important, and we should be pushing that as much as we possibly can. But face-to-face is always better than online. All right. So hopefully I haven't gone over 20 minutes.
Perfect.
Okay, in that case, basically that's all I really wanted to tell you. I would like to say I'm here all week, but the reality is I'm at the university, so I'm here for all year. If you want to talk to me afterwards, I'd be very happy to talk to you. Thank you very much for putting up with me.
I invite you to join me in singing our closing hymn, number 146, Soon the Day Will Arrive. This is in the gray hymnal that you can find beneath the seats. I invite you to stand and join me in singing. With the reminder, please, if you choose to join in, sing with your mask. This closing hymn has words by the Israeli poet Ehud Manor and music by Nurit Hirsch.
invited. Some last words from you?
Oh, yes, of course, sorry. Last word. All right. So what I chose for the last word actually comes from the Unitarians, strangely enough. From a rather famous Unitarian, an educator, Horace Mann. Do not think of knocking out another person's brains because he differs in opinion from you. It would be as rational to knock yourself on the head because you differ from yourself 10 years ago. Thank you.
Now we're at the end of the service, and I'm going to go down and extinguish the chalice. May its flame glow brightly in our hearts and light our paths as we leave this place until we are together again.
I invite you to stand and join me in singing our congregational benediction.
This concludes our service. You're welcome to stay and visit outside. Masked or unmasked, it's your option, on the patio through the double doors off the social hall. Thank you all for joining us with our service today. To those of you here in the sanctuary and those of you watching on YouTube streaming, we'll see you next week right here. Thank you.